Hi everyone, it's Brie and welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to talk about 3 mistakes I made when I was working on and publishing my first book. That way you can avoid these same mistakes and do better than I did. The first mistake I want to talk about is not talking about my book. Now, that might sound a little weird, like why when you talk about it, wouldn't you want to? You have to promote it. But the truth is, I just sort of felt very inward about my book. The only one who knew that I was even writing a book at the time was my partner. I didn't even tell my parents, my coworkers, friends, nothing until way later down the line. Let me tell you a quick story. It's August 2021 and I'm sitting in the office at work, and somehow I don't remember exactly what brought this up, but casually I was just like, oh yeah, I'm waiting for the illustrator to get back to me with some of the first drafts of my book. And my coworkers were just like, I'm sorry, what? Like, you wrote a book? That was one of the first times I'd mentioned my book to anyone except for my boyfriend. No one knew that I had even written a book. I didn't talk about it, and there was no hype leading up to it. People couldn't get excited for me because no one knew about it. Fast forward to September 2021, so literally only a month, and I'm releasing my book. So from the time I actually started talking about my book to publishing it, it had only been a month. Long story short, if I would have talked about my book more frequently and a lot earlier to the people in my life, I could have done way more promoting and marketing without even really realizing it. Never underestimate the power of word of mouth. My parents would tell people that I've written a book. All of a sudden, more coworkers I worked with started hearing from other coworkers, and then I felt more confident talking about my book. And then I started posting on social media being like, hey, everybody, I wrote a book. I was shocked, like surprised at how many people that weren't in my immediate, friends and family circle who started talking about it and sharing posts and getting really excited for me. Read the word about this awesome book that was coming out. It started to grow my confidence. I was like, wow, okay, this is actually possible. Like, people want to buy my book. And I started seeing the pre-orders come in, and it was a really exciting feeling. And my release for Honest Holly went really well. But just think about it. If I would have even talked about my book a month sooner, 2 months sooner, in the drafting process, just being like, hey, this cool thing I'm doing on the side, I'm writing a book. This is what it's about. I'm waiting for the illustrator. It's sent to an editor. The outcome could have been 100 times better, right? Because people would have had time. They would have been anticipating, been excited for this coming book. And even after I published a book, sometimes people were like, wait, I've known you for how long? You published a book? What are you talking about? Just the support is amazing. So don't be ashamed. Don't be embarrassed about publishing your book. Trust me, you will be surprised who supports you. People who I hadn't talked to in years, bought my book, showed me pictures of it. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. It was better than I could ever hope for. My first mistake leads directly into my second one. The second mistake I made is not giving myself enough time. So remember I said, I didn't really talk about my book, and then all of a sudden I did, and then a month later I was releasing it. Well, I sort of did the same thing with the publishing process as well. Once Honest Holly was completed, and by completed I mean I had the illustrations, it had been edited, it's been formatted, all the files are uploaded into KDP and Ingram Spark, I really just didn't give myself enough time because I was like, oh, it's done. Here's the release date a month later, let's go. Now, to be fair, I was new to the process. I had no idea what I was doing, but I hadn't had my proofs back to me yet. I had ordered them, but they hadn't arrived. I didn't do any sort of ARC readers, beta readers, nothing, because I had no idea what I was doing. And also, I just was like, oh, I wrote a book and my plan is to self-publish, so I guess I better publish. Along with this, I didn't have a plan, right? I was just kind of going with the flow. I was doing research on YouTube and articles and finding different authors who have self-published and what their plans were. And I was flying by the seats of my pants. I was just doing one thing after another because I would learn about something new. I'm like, oh, I guess I better do that. This time around, now that I'm working on my second book, which is The Adventures of Jimmy and Percy, Quack-a-Doodle-Doo, more on that in a bit. I mentioned my pre-orders went really well. I had over 100 pre-orders, I think, and I want to say a lot of that's from people I know. But imagine if I would have actually given myself that marketing time and created a marketing plan. Again, no idea what I was doing, but I could have extended things. I could have given more people time to order and decide on, do I want an ebook? Do I want a paperback? Do I want to pre-order it? Do I want it now? Do I want to enter this contest? And just spread the word like wildfire. But because I was in such a rush and I didn't make those plans, everything was just sort of mumbled and jumbled. This was also happening during the pandemic. There were lockdowns. I couldn't do things in person. I had no idea how to go about, planning readings or virtual live events with people. So I didn't give myself that time to even figure that out, even research it. I was researching this as I was making things up as I went along. Because I didn't give myself time, my release was actually very stressful for me because I was not anticipating anyone to really buy my book at all, and I was actually overwhelmed with the amount of support and the amount of people who did order. But I think it could have been less stressful if I had those plans in place and figure it out. And when I did release it, I didn't really even have a fun release plan. I was just like, okay, everybody, my book's out, yay, it's a few days after my birthday, and that's it. The third mistake I made was not creating a game plan. Do you see what I'm doing here? I'm making all three mistakes tie into each other. So I didn't talk about my book, I didn't give myself time, and I also didn't create a game plan. I definitely suggest mapping out your release, everything from when you're going to edit, when you're wanting to get illustrations done, when you're going to publish, at what points do you want to do certain marketing techniques, because it's all going to benefit you later and it's going to make the whole thing less stressful. Let's pretend your book is done or nearly done and you're thinking about actually publishing your book. Hopefully you're going to pick a release date that's well enough in advance that it gives you time to plan and market and build some hype and learn the ins and outs of self-publishing, but not so far in advance that your marketing techniques are going to just start falling flat. There's a few important questions to ask yourself when you're creating a game plan. How long do you want to market before you actually release your book? How are you going to market? Also, how much money are you willing to spend on marketing? And this one's really important because as a self-published author, let me tell you, the marketing cost, it's all on you. There are tons of free ways to market your book. However, you have to take into account the amount of time and resources you're also putting into this as well. So if your book is at the nearly done stage, you also have to consider, have you had your edits done? Is it fully edited at all? How long is that editor going to take to get it back? And then once you get it back, do you have to make a bunch of corrections? Are you going to send it back to the editor? Do you need to have proofreads? Have you had ARC readers? Have you had beta readers? What process are you at? And how long is it going to take you to complete those tasks? Also give yourself time for proof copies. And by that, I mean, so if you're going the Amazon or Ingram Spark route, they give you an option to order a proof copy. You get to review a copy of your book before you hit publish. And I really suggest doing this because something could be really off with your cover or off with your pages. And you want to make sure you're setting out the best copies to your readers. I mentioned my upcoming book a little earlier, The Adventures of Jimmy and Percy. For this book, I've sort of followed my advice and sort of not. I have created more of a game plan, but because I decided to do the illustrations myself for this book, I've given myself a ton of time because I didn't know how long it was going to take me. I was learning a new skill, like digitally drawing, and I was kind of like, I don't know what I'm actually doing at all now. So on top of being a new publisher and author, I'm also a new illustrator. I've given myself more time, and now that the book is nearly complete, I know a release date that's well in advance, and I've been talking about this book for over a year, so people know it's coming. People are anticipating this book. I've created a bunch of ideas for my marketing plan, and as I'm working on the release, I'm implementing these ideas and I'm going forward, and so far I feel like it's going a lot smoother than Honest Holly, except for the cover reveal. I've had to push that date a couple days, twice now. The cover is done, but I just wasn't ready. I took on a few other projects and I basically made myself too busy. But anyways, the cover reveal is back on track, which is happening on July 2nd. So if you're interested in a contest where you can win some free stuff, then you'll have to come meet me back here and on my socials. How can you avoid these mistakes? So first of all, the first one is super simple. Talk about your book. Don't be embarrassed about it. It can be really awkward to talk about your creative work. I understand that. And it's something that does get easier with time. Sometimes it is a little awkward and maybe someone doesn't want to listen, but I bet you a lot of people want to hear about your work. Don't be afraid to express yourself and share your ideas, share that creativity with the world. Give yourself time. Plan ahead, get an agenda, a whiteboard, a notebook where you can write down different timelines. I honestly recommend giving yourself more time than is needed. If you know that something might take you 2 days to do, give yourself 5. And the reason for that is life gets in the way sometimes and you just can't get it done. Maybe your computer stops working, or, maybe you get called into work, like your day job that you do on top of writing or creating or whatever it is you do. Give yourself enough time. Plan ahead. Don't rush it. If you rush it, it's not going to be as quality as it would be if you just slowed down. Creating a game plan, honestly, do your research. Watch YouTube videos, find articles. It doesn't even have to be specifically towards writing or creating. There's tons of videos on YouTube that offer lots of advice about creating timelines, marketing, all of that stuff. Publishing separately from writing, and tons of writing videos. You can find it all on the internet. And, with that being said, take some advice with a grain of salt. People work in different ways. I know some people really love outlining. I hate it. And it doesn't work super well for me all the time. I'm someone where I kind of just have to write and then do like a baby outline later. So everyone's going to work differently. Take all advice with a grain of salt. But honestly, do your research and just slow down your game plan. It doesn't have to rush. There's no race to success. We're all in this together. It's interesting because writing is one of those careers where it's like you're all competing, but you're all rooting for each other at the same time. You're going to find someone who's in your corner, who's in the exact same industry as you. All right, everyone, that's it for today's video. Come visit my channel on July 2nd for the cover reveal of The Adventures of Jimmy and Percy. Quack-a-doodle-doo. I can't wait to see you there and on my other socials as well. I'll link them below. Have an awesome day. See you then. Bye.